What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Pigskins and Pinfalls. I'm Dick Burns.
I'm Bobby Boomerang. We're here to talk everything from Will Levis going first overall to CM Punk backstage at Raw.
We're here to talk about everything from Rodgers becoming a Jet to a beautiful new title belt. It's one of those
All
force.
right.
It's one of those force rhymes. It's a force rhyme.
Yeah, yeah, we got. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
You sniffing what I'm stepping
Um,
in?
yo, I'm painting what you're priming, brother.
Hey, there we go.
But yeah, you said it. Let's just get right into it. The Aaron Rodgers trade is finally complete.
Yeah,
Over a month.
all
Over a month from when he announced on the Pat McAfee show, I believe March 15th, that he had the intentions to play with the Jets.
there's no more having to play guessing games on who's doing what. It's official. Everything's in the books. Now, I gotta be honest. This trade was huge, but it sounds like everybody wins.
It
So
does.
let's go over this. So the Jets will receive Rodgers. They swap first round picks, so they'll take 15th instead of 13th now, and they get the Packers' fifth round pick at 170. Uh, the Packers in return will get, again, they move up to the 13th. They get the second round pick, which is pick 42, the sixth round pick, which is 207, or a sixth round pick. I'm pretty sure there's more than one. And then this is the fun one, a conditional 2024 second round pick. It becomes a first if Aaron Rodgers plays at least 65% of the snaps this year, which, unless he gets injured, that's pretty much going to be a first pick.
I mean, yeah, quarterbacks normally it's safe bet to say they're going to play 65% of the snaps.
Exactly, especially when it's a star quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. So it's funny too, because like everyone was talking, even like music pages I follow on Facebook, they were making memes out of the Rodgers trade, and there were people commenting like, "Ew, Rodgers to the Jets," and I was like, "Shows how much you guys fucking know."
Right, right.
Because
Yeah, I think that this was pretty big for both teams. I think that it is about time.
yeah,
It took a while. Although to be fair, we have said on this show we both thought that it was going to be a draft day trade. Um,
I gotta be
three
honest,
days.
I don't
It
remember
happened.
saying that. That might have been a you thing, but either way, you were right.
I think
Like
yeah.
it was like damn near. I mean, they said like late last week that they wanted to get the trade done before the draft and to figure that out, and they
Well,
did. Right before the
I
buzzer.
mean, it made sense to do it before the draft because you're gonna have draft picks. There was no one on the Jets that you're trading straight up for Aaron Rodgers,
hmm
so it
There's
makes sense that it had to get done with the draft picks because you're not going to trade for a player after you draft people for a draft that's 12 months away.
exactly.
So yeah, it makes sense.
Uh,
Um,
Brees
Brees
Hall.
Hall on
Yeah,
Twitter. Yeah,
you want to take
yeah.
that?
No, you can. It was your note. You got it.
Okay, so he tweets after the trade is done. He just puts, "My knee feel a little healthier now,"
I
and
bet it does.
I'm pretty sure it does.
I guarantee you, every New York Jet player woke up today and was like, "Oh man, it's a good day." Like,
So
yeah, my knee would feel a little healthier too if I had Aaron Rodgers in the backfield with me.
yeah, so I wanted to address this though, because like I was saying, there were other pages that were making memes about it, and other people were commenting on it, and I was just like, let's put this into perspective. The Jets went 7-10 last year and was at the bottom of their division. That was through inconsistent quarterback play throughout the entire season, which that was what killed them. The quarterback is the biggest missing piece. They had the offensive rookie of the year and the defensive rookie of the year. Like
Yep.
the only thing they're missing again was that stability at quarterback. And legitimately, like with them in place, there's a very good possibility the Jets can take the East.
Maybe,
It's stiff competition, but it's
maybe,
possible.
yeah. I mean, let's not forget Aaron Rodgers absolutely had a down year.
hmm
He had a down year last year.
He picked it back up in the second half, though.
He did. He did. I mean, the Packers were making a late push for the playoffs. They were right there at the end of the regular season. So, I still think I think the two East, the AFC East and the NFC East, are probably the two best divisions in football now.
I have to agree.
Um,
The
you
East is
know, and
definitely the AFC East, especially, has immediately shot up the ranks again.
Josh Allen, Aaron Rodgers, Tua Tagovailoa, Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi. Um,
Or
Which again, if you compare that to the NFC East, Jalen Hurts, Daniel Jones, Dak Prescott, Sam Howell. So like 3 out of 4 having, you know, essentially both sides, AFC and NFC East, have 3 Pro Bowl caliber quarterbacks out of 4.
exactly.
And to be credit to Sam Howell, we don't know how he'll perform in the league yet because he didn't have a whole lot to do last year.
Also
But
true.
just real quick before we move on, day after the draft trades, who's your pick to win the AFC East right now?
Ooh. I am so split right now. I have no idea. I'm not
All
gonna
right,
lie.
where are you split?
It's literally everybody but the Patriots. It can go either way. Actually, I take that back. I think the Bills are out now. I think the Bills' time has already. I think their time is up.
The window
I
is
think
closed.
I think the window's closed. I think they lost too many pieces. That defense was just too banged up. I think it's gonna come down. If Tua stays healthy, it will come down between the Dolphins and the Jets.
My pick is still the Dolphins. I think that they added added good weapons. They had a decent offseason. And we have news about Tua that we'll get to later on in the show.
Hmm.
My initial gut reaction, no thinking pick is the Dolphins. Um, but I think it's entirely possible that the AFC East gets 3 playoff teams.
I that's exactly what I'm looking at right now. It's
But at
very
the same
possible.
time, the AFC West has the Chiefs, the Chargers, Raiders, and the Broncos. But like,
Yeah, that's not as much.
but the Chiefs and Chargers. I mean, like, AFC is gonna. I mean, it's football.
Well, that there you go. That's your three wild cards: one from the West and two from the East.
But that means that one of those 3 teams in the East we just mentioned doesn't make it.
How you
You have
figure?
your division winner,
Mm-hmm. There's three
and then
wild
you
cards
get.
now.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, you forgot 17s
Right.
are a thing again.
I did.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so finally, Aaron Rodgers to the Jets. We've been waiting for it for a little over a month. Um, that brings us to more drama around the Commanders sale. And
Yeah.
Mr. Burns, you have been our resident speaker on this so far for these past few weeks with
Yeah.
all of this. So we're not going to mix it up now. Why don't you tell us what's going on with the Commanders?
Yeah. So early last week, well, kind of mid last week, there was, of course, as we mentioned last week, there was a lot of drama surrounding. Okay, there's this secondary bid for the Commanders, valued at $7 billion by Brian Davis. Uh, there was some digging that was done on that, and some of this stuff is just bewildering. So Davis and his company Urban Echo, which is the source of his funding, I guess it's like an energy company. They work in like solar power or whatever I think it is. Um, they were sued 6 days after submitting the bid for failing to pay a $322,000 loan. And
Not a good look.
this was not the first time that he's been sued for failing to repay a loan. He notably failed to repay loans when trying to raise funds to purchase the Memphis Grizzlies a couple years back, and he was sued and lost by Scottie Pippen, and I believe there was another one in there as well. I can't remember. It was a notable. It was another notable name. I didn't write it down. Um, Darren Haynes from WUSA 9, again the local CBS
Local
outlet.
CBS.
He reported on Tuesday that Brian Davis's funds actually originated from the Middle East. Now, of course, we know all about funding coming from the Middle East and all the issues that are going on because of the way that the WWE's been handling that. So Brian Davis goes on to the Junkies radio podcast Wednesday morning, and
I miss
this
the Junkies. Man, I miss that was one of the best things about living up there is the Junkies are a great sports radio
yeah.
network.
So this quote sent me just so much.
Yep.
His
Yep.
response when asked about that was, "My money comes from white people who are Jewish, Italian, and Sicilian." If you that is not a good for one. Even if the money
That
is
answer.
not coming from Middle East, that is a terrible answer. For two, giving such a terrible answer immediately sends this it sends all speculation back to the other side. It's like, nah, you covering something up, man.
That's not good.
I
That's
didn't
not
realize also
good.
he's a former Duke basketball player, so I feel a little shame now. I feel a little bit of shame.
I feel shame being a Duke basketball fan.
Right.
Oh, just kidding. They're pretty
Fuck
good
you.
at basketball. Yeah, no, that's not good. That's not good.
Not a good look at all.
No, no. But at this point, I think it's safe to say that Brian Davis will not be the future owner of the Commanders.
I don't think it's gonna happen. I think
Um,
there are too many red flags going on with that whole bid that something is bound to fall through. And again, the 6 billion bid from Josh Harris and his group and his entire
it's
group
real.
is real. It's tangible. It has a lot of like the facts check out. I
Yeah.
think it's still going to be the one that sells. It'd be nice. It'd be interesting to see them sell for 7 bill for that added bonus. But again, they're just if I don't know though, because at the same time we're talking about Dan Snyder here, and that's still like so
He's
he
trying
could
to squeeze blood from a stone.
exactly. And again, let's not forget that one of the stipulations to that whole sale was that Brian Davis was offering to cover all of Snyder's legal fees, which
Hmm.
if I were Snyder, that sounds like a deal.
They are aplenty.
They are. I would not want to pay that. Well,
So
but then again, if you're getting $6 billion from the sale anyways, you're gonna have the money to pay your legal fees regardless.
correct. So here's a little like peek behind the curtain for me. I don't really read our notes throughout the week.
You
I
just
kind of I try to come into the show blind to get honest reactions. Obviously, like the big news stuff, like I knew about the Jets, right? I knew
yeah,
about Aaron Rodgers. Some of these other notes in here I know about. But like, or I'll skim our notes to see if I'm adding something that you may have already hit on.
yeah.
Um, but
Normally I
this
beat you to the punch.
but this particular note here, I saw it was about the Commander sale, and I didn't read it. So while I was listening to you just now, and you were saying, he's sued 6 days after submitting his bid for failing to pay a $322,000 loan. How are you going to make a $7 billion offer when you can't pay back $300,000?
Exactly. That's
That's
the
my
red flag.
initial thought.
That's the
That
red
was my
flag that hit
first
everybody
thought.
from the very beginning. That was the
Right.
first red flag.
So like that was my first thought when you said that. I was like, well, where you at? Where you
You
can't
got
pay back
you got money for fake
$300,000.
mustaches, but you ain't got money to pay me back.
They're like, you got $300,000, but bro, you need a lot more zeros to get to 7 billion.
Exactly. And if you
You
can't
know?
like if there's again, that's why they're saying it's just like there's a lot of red flags in place. It's just like, I don't know about this. If you can't pay 300 grand, what makes us think that you can pay 7 bill
Right.
with a
Right.
B.
Yeah, with a B.
With a B.
With a B.
With a B.
So that's going to move us into other NFL notes. Kind of quiet week on the NFL side, even though we are approaching the draft. It's a lot of mock draft stuff this week. I'm going to be honest, like, not huge college football guy.
Neither am
I
I.
like watching college football. Like, if it's on during the season, I'll throw it on and I'll watch. But like, I can't give you an honest opinion on my mock draft thoughts because I'm just going to regurgitate what I've heard from other pundits.
Exactly. I'm
So
honestly the same way. Again, I was always more focused. So this has always been a thing for me, and you know this as well. I'm a fan of pro football, but I am terrible at keeping up with college football. I don't keep up with pro basketball, but I very
you
much
love
keep up with college basketball because again, Duke being a college basketball team more so than a football team. Granted, our football team's gotten better over the years, but
it has. You've had a couple players come out of Duke recently. Daniel Jones, notably.
Jamison Crowder.
Yep. Number one overall pick in our or number two overall
Number two
pick in our
overall pick.
fantasy
We
football league one
we
year.
have so our fantasy league. We have what is called the Jamison Crowder Award, which is our Sacco. It is literally for whoever gets last place, you get the Crowder Award, and it is because of the fact that I think it was our third season. One of the guys in our league that wasn't paying attention with the second overall pick took Jamison Crowder, and we
And then-
clowned on him so bad for it. And
We were talking about it this year in the draft, and somebody was like, he should go to jail. And I was like, well, I got good news for you.
as a matter of
Completely
fact, shortly after that draft pick was made, he did go to jail.
did.
That's
Oh,
against the
man.
point. We don't need to put them on blast.
No names.
No names.
And I highly doubt that he watches this show.
Yeah.
Other NFL notes, and this first one is beautiful.
I agree.
Damar Hamlin has been, quote, fully cleared to play football again, says Bills GM Brandon Beane.
Let's fucking go.
It is. That was one of the scariest moments ever on a football field.
In history.
Unprecedented. Yeah, literally unprecedented.
We've been following the Damar Hamlin situation ever since it happened. Because I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
we were live. Like we were already recording around the time that, well, I think shortly after that whole thing happened was when we started the podcast.
Correct, but our fantasy football group chat was all in on that.
Exactly.
And I mean, that's one of those things where, like, I remember exactly where I was. You know, like, like I remember I was
right
out
here in
at
the chair, so
I was out to dinner with my buddy Nino. I've shouted him out on the show quite a few times. Me and Nino were out to dinner, and he went to the bathroom, and he comes back, and he was like, "What happened?" I'm like, "Oh, injury timeout." No.
this was more than just an
for those
injury timeout.
For those of you that lived under a rock and don't know, Damar Hamlin took a shot to the chest and quite literally died on the field. He had a commodio cordis, which is where your heart stops due to a blunt impact on your chest. We've seen it happen in hockey, most notably. I cannot remember the hockey player's name. I'm sorry, but it's scary. And I mean, the way he dropped to the ground and
Think Jackie Chan One Punch, or Bruce Lee One Punch rather.
Yes. But yeah, we don't need to focus on the negative because it's a positive now. He has been fully cleared, and thank God. You know, so yeah, that's great news for Damar Hamlin, his family, his friends, the Bills fans, all of it.
Exactly.
So moving on, per Adam Schefter, Jalen Hurts' contract included a no trade clause, which is the first such clause in Eagles franchise history.
It's actually shocking that that's the first they've ever had.
I agree. I mean, I understand that, you know, the Eagles haven't had any Peyton Mannings or Tom Brady's on, but like Donovan McNabb didn't have that. Brian Westbrook didn't have that. Brian Dawkins didn't have that. Like
Fletcher Cox.
Yeah, you know, Jason Kelsey.
Yeah. A lot of these big names that didn't have no trade clauses in their contracts.
Right.
But at the same time, when you give him the money to become the highest paid football player in history, like you gotta make sure there's no trade in there. Just be like, we're investing the money in you. You're not going anywhere.
Right. Or counterpart, Jalen Hurts, like, nah, I'm staying.
Yeah, like
we don't know who put the no trade in.
Yeah, he can't be halfway through this contract and be like, oh, this ship is sinking, I'm out. Can't do that.
I'll take this next one.
Yeah, so the Steelers, they finalized the trade last week with the Los Angeles Rams to acquire Allen Robinson. The Steelers also get pick number 251 in exchange for pick 234. So they're basically swapping 7th round picks in addition to trading away Robinson. This was outrageously just a huge what the fuck to me. The fact that you are devaluing Allen Robinson that much. Granted, I know he didn't do much in LA, but I still look at his body of work that he had with Chicago, and I was just like, no, this guy's a star. It's your fault that he didn't do well with the Rams. And he, in addition, was also critical of the way that the Rams used him. This is he was asked about it. This is a tweet from Brian Batko on Twitter. When he was asked about his brief time with the Rams, he quotes the great poet Patrick Beverly: "If you're a fork, you don't want to be used as a spoon the majority of the time." I love that.
I love Patrick Beverly. He's great. He's fucking awesome.
But like, in addition to that, though, like the shade being thrown by Allen Robinson, like, it's true though. Like,
as funny as that quote is, like, it does make sense.
Yeah, they didn't utilize him right.
Right.
You can't.
And you're not going to use a fork to eat cereal.
Mm-hmm.
and you're not going to use a spoon to eat steak.
I was trying to think of a joke there. It just wasn't coming.
Okay, I was like, you all right?
I
But
was
no,
like,
like,
yeah, no, I got nothing.
and I understand the Rams had a shit ton of weapons, right? Like they had a lot of offensive firepower,
Hmm.
and he just didn't get. He got lost in the shuffle. I mean, when Cooper Kupp is, vacuuming up 110 catches a year, like
Not to
not
mention
a lot
again
left.
the issues that they had under center last year with Stafford getting hurt and them going through the rotating cycle of quarterbacks themselves.
Correct. Um, don't know how great he's gonna do in Pittsburgh, to be honest.
Apparently, he's fitting in really well already.
That's
Apparently,
good.
yeah, no,
That's
I
good
like
for
it.
that's good for Pittsburgh. Good for him.
I
But
mean,
I mean,
honestly, that's a receiving core that needed the help. So
that's true. But I was talking with it's funny how all of this kind of falls into place sometimes. At work yesterday, somebody came in who was a Steelers fan, and I was just having a conversation with him,
mhm.
and he was saying that like he's not totally sold on Kenny Pickett. He doesn't know if that's actually the answer. And then I told him, I said, well, the problem is you're comparing Kenny Pickett to Ben Roethlisberger, who won y'all 2 Super Bowls.
Exactly.
And he goes, absolutely, I'm comparing him to that. That's who he's following.
You're frozen.
I was like, oh, okay.
Hang on, we're reloading. You froze on me. Wait, I can still hear you though. I think. Nope, we lost you.
Happened.
Let's try that again. There you go.
I
It
want to
happens.
put my hand down, and
Technology.
I guess
Gotta love
I'm
it.
gonna move my mouse away from the camera button.
It's all good. It just needed a refresh. That's all. So reports. Ian Rappaport says that Blaine Gabbert is signing with the Chiefs. I didn't get any details on the deal on that. I should have looked that up. I know. I put it in the notes as soon as it was announced. But I mean, Blaine Gabbert playing backup to Patrick Mahomes. It's a solid hand to have back as your number two.
Blaine Gabbert is, I mean, he was at one point, I believe, the fourth overall pick for the Jaguars, but he didn't pan out. But good for him for still being in the league, making his money, and
Yeah,
playing on probably the best team in the league.
arguably. Yeah.
Yep. Um, there have been reports of, quote, multiple teams reaching out to the 49ers to inquire about Trey Lance. My thing with that is, can the Niners let him go with Brock Purdy's health issues at the moment?
Absolutely. Yeah, I saw you put that question in there, and I say absolutely. You got to think they also have Sam Darnold now to play backup.
This is true.
So
And Brock Purdy is, I believe his timetable is like right around that week 1 thing. So I don't think
yeah,
he's going to miss significant time. He might not be your week 1 starter, but I think it's possible he could be week 2, week 3 starter.
and I think again, this is one of those issues where there's already been questions about Trey Lance's durability, his ability to stay healthy. This is what the second year in a row now that we've had issues like that, if not more, going back to his college days. The You have this potentially star quarterback still that you're doing nothing with because you've already shown like you're not going to demote Purdy after the year that he had. No way in hell. So at that point, I think it just makes sense. Get some value out of Lance while you can. Granted, he is, and not only that, but he's still on his rookie contract. So that's still a value for any team that wants him. There's enough
Correct.
teams right now that are still in the market for a quarterback that Trey Lance is still a great option. And when we've been talking already about how deep this quarterback class is in the draft. There's a good possibility that a team can go in the opposite direction and be like, yeah, no, we're gonna go ahead and do this instead of trying to hawk for one of these fresh kids,
Yeah.
and just hope that you can roll the dice and that keep Trey Lance
He
healthy.
pans out. Yeah.
He still
And I
has
mean,
flashes of brilliance. It's just a matter of him staying healthy.
correct. And let's be real, the backbone of that Niners team is its defense, not its offense.
Exactly. And
So,
they've always been a defensive team. And let's not forget, though, that you've got plenty of other weapons on that team. Let's not forget, they took my boy CMC. They've got
they
George
did.
Kittle. They've got
Yep.
Brandon Ayuk, Debo
Debo.
Samuel. Like, they have a stacked offense. There's enough of a supporting cast that they can really make something happen there.
I agree. So now it comes to the foreshadowing I talked about earlier. Tua Tagovailoa
Hmm.
briefly toyed with the idea of retirement after all the concussions he suffered this season. He's also been practicing judo so he can, quote, fall better and avoid more head injuries.
Break fall. You
Um,
gotta know your martial arts to know how to take a fall right.
Good for him. Um,
I'm here for it.
that's yeah. I mean, I will never ever shit on somebody for trying to better their lives in any aspect, and learning a martial arts is bettering your life.
Yeah, and again, like you said, it's to help him learn how to take hits better, and that's his big issue right now is learning how to take the hits. Because I mean, if he takes a hit and then immediately gets concussed, whether you have the protection or not, that still says something.
I agree.
Um, on I think it was Thursday night, the Cardinals revealed their new uniforms. I think it's hilarious how everyone's comparing them immediately to the Ohio State uniforms.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
they look nice. I'm not gonna lie, they do look nice,
Not
but
bad.
again, it looks like you
First of
have.
all, First of all, the Cardinals, in my opinion, have probably the best color scheme, red, white, and black. That is near and dear to my heart because my high school team was red, white, and black.
Mhm.
Uh, I typically wear black. You typically wear. I mean, look, I'm wearing
We're both wearing black right now. Yeah,
But I like the new uniforms. Good for them. The Cardinals are a storied franchise. They've been around for a long time,
they're one of the original
and
teams.
yep, and good for them for getting new uniforms.
Yeah,
It's a
whatever,
great
whatever helps
new
make them feel
uniforms.
fresh.
Not only that, but new uniforms is a great way to try to project change, right?
Yeah,
Like we're trying to change how we're perceived in this division or in this league. I know that things haven't gone the best for the Cardinals recently. They did their experiment with Cliff Kingsbury that did not work out very well, and they want to try something different. So here we're changing. This is the
it's
and
something.
it starts with the uniform. Um, Cowboys pick up the fifth-year option on CD Lamb. No surprise there.
No surprise at all. Honestly, good on them.
Yep, I was not shocked in the slightest. Um, this one is a little interesting to me.
Yeah.
Former Lions coach Matt Patricia signs with the Eagles in a senior defensive advisor role. The reason that's interesting to me is because Matt Patricia,
Matt Pat.
Matt Patricia,
The other Matt Pat.
the other Matt Pat, he used to be the Lions head coach.
Mm-hmm.
Darius Slay used to play on the Lions.
Also true.
Darius Slay was very critical of Matt Patricia when he was the head coach of the
I
Lions.
forgot about that.
And now
Ooh.
Matt Patricia is in the senior defensive advisor role. Darius Slay plays defense. Interesting.
At the same time, though, that he's in a defensive advisor position, so it's not like you can really make a lot of calls on that.
I agree, but it is just it's
Definitely of note, for sure.
yes. Um, this next one.
Yeah. Tell us about this one.
So as you know, I went back up to Virginia last week, and I was flying back home to Florida,
Mm-hmm.
and as I'm sitting on the plane, my flight pilot comes over the intercom and says, "There's a problem with air traffic control. We're going to be grounded for 45 minutes." So I look up on the screen on the back of the plane, and it's on ESPN, and it says breaking news. NFL suspends 5 players for violating their gambling policy. Jamison Williams, among those suspended, received 6-game suspension. Multiple players have been banned indefinitely. And then here's exactly what I put in our notes. I'm writing this on a plane, so I can't look into it further. But the 2 logos on screen on ESPN is the Lions and Commanders. They are saying that Williams did not bet on games.
Okay, so I just looked it up. It was 3 of the Lions receivers, safety CJ Moore, and then the Commanders defensive end Shaka Toney. Um, let's see.
So obviously the biggest name from there is Jamison Williams.
Yeah, obviously. The other names were not as notable, But also the Lions announced on Friday that they released Quintez Cephas and C.J. Moore following their suspensions.
Yep.
So that's something as well. I'm actually just now looking at the news on that. I meant to do this earlier, but I was working on other stuff. Yeah, by the looks of it, it comes down to it. It doesn't say what gambling exactly was done.
I know.
But
I know what happened.
okay,
Or as far as Jameson Williams goes,
yeah,
he was not gambling on NFL games.
mm-hmm.
However, he made a bet in the Lions facility.
That you can't do.
Correct.
Like even if you're betting on like a basketball game, you can't do that. Like that's a bad look.
I am of the opinion that if you live in a state where gambling is legal, you should be allowed to gamble. I do agree that, like, if I'm a Lions player, I should not be allowed to bet on Lions games. But also, if you're an NFL player, you have the added advantage of knowing these guys on the other teams and, like, hey, how y'all feeling? Like, I can see how it could be a little insider-ish.
Mm-hmm. I think what it is more than anything is just having the web traffic going to those betting sites coming from your facility. It's a bad
correct.
Look. Like on like the tech side of the house, just seeing the connection of the two IPs, it's a bad look.
Yeah. And Jameson Williams, man, like, this isn't good, dude. Like, he missed, what was it, the first 9 games last year with injury, his rookie season. And now here he's going to miss the first 6 games of his second season. Like, I understand the injury is not necessarily his fault, but 9 plus 6 is 15. You essentially, in your first 2 seasons, you miss a season.
Yeah, it's not a good.
And
look.
At some point, the Lions are going to be like, "You're not worth the headache." And like, don't get me like, everybody said Jameson Williams would have been a much higher draft pick had he not gotten injured. His first ever catch in the NFL was for a touchdown, so he's part of that club there. But
so while we're talking about it, I decided to look up exactly what receivers they do still have on the books. And you got to they still have Amon-Ra. They have Marvin Jones back, Josh Reynolds. There's still a little bit of depth at receiver. They can afford to let go of Williams if it comes down to it.
Yeah. And I mean, look, like, we've said it before on this show, specifically about Kyler Murray, but, like, when you get to the league, you got to grow up a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And my thing is, bro, if I'm in the NFL, you're my best friend, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do, hey, Dick, I need you to place a fucking $100 bet on this game. Here's the money. You do it.
I'm sorry. I'm going to take that a step further. You're in the NFL making NFL money. Why the fuck do you even need to make bets on anything anyways?
Also true.
Unless you're just doing it for the sport of it. Which, if that's the case, find better hobbies.
Agreed.
Talk
to me about CJ Stroud.
Yeah,
bud.
So it's been really notable how he's been sliding down everybody's draft boards. And everyone's been questioning why. And we feel like we have an answer potentially. So an anonymous NFL executive has been cautioning teams to stay away from him, labeling him as a bust after he scored an 18% on the S2 test. Now, the S2 test, for those of you that don't know, it measures how players process and make split-second decisions, which is kind of valuable for a quarterback. Notably, a lot of the other quarterbacks in this draft class were scoring up in the 80s and 90s. Now, at the same time, the founder of S2, Brandon Ally, was on the Pat McAfee show talking about this on Monday, and he had, I think it was, yesterday, and he was saying, there's been, like, there's a little bit of questioning of the legitimacy of the scores. Like, again, he came in late, he was out of, like, he wasn't in his, he flew in late the night before.
CJ Stroud.
Yeah, he flew in late the night before. He had a bunch of other stuff that was going on. He was tired. He was hungry, and standardized testing. They don't give a shit about any of that. There is no waiting until you're ready. Like it's no, you're doing this here and now. You're on a schedule, so it's very possible that could have played factors into it. Again, there's also a very good possibility that was false reporting. So This is an anonymous NFL exec that was saying it. So there's no weight, there's no like meat on the bones.
Right.
It could also still be rumors. However,
Yeah.
again, this can be a very good reason why CJ Stroud has
He's
been
dropping.
he's been dropping. We've been seeing him go
Yeah.
as late as down into the teens now, which is
Right.
insane to think about when you consider just a few weeks ago he was in talks of being the one or the two.
Yeah. Yeah. And I thought that he was sliding strictly because he's an Ohio State quarterback and they don't have a great track record.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. Ohio State, they don't really have a good track record on quarterbacks. Their pedigree is more in the receiver classes.
It's, yeah, or defense or even running back, but like,
Yeah.
I, eh, um, but also like you standardized testing. Realistically, how much does that translate to the field?
Not only that, but what's to say that that can't be improved upon as
Correct.
he's in the league?
Correct.
Like there's room for
You know, because
and potential for growth.
we've also heard people scoring terribly on the Wonderlic, and they turned out to be pretty damn good in the league. We've heard people scoring amazing on the Wonderlic and not being so great in the league. You know, like the problem is
I
like the
know need
draft
to learn
process.
algebra if I can throw a ball good.
I mean, that's technically true. Well, yeah, I guess you need to know more geometry if you're going to be a quarterback.
Yeah, I was just being smart ass
I'm going
about
to
it.
stop being a math nerd now, but
That's my job. Come on.
but be like, I don't know, man. Like the draft process, like they fucking poke and prod at every aspect of your life. Like it's got to be an uncomfortable situation. You know what I mean? Like I've heard stories of them like look like I think it was Deion Sanders who said like I want my defensive linemen to come from divorced families because then they're hungrier and they want to play for mama and he's like I want my quarterbacks to come from two loving parents and it's like yo dude like that's
My money comes
it's
from white people who are Jewish, Italian, and Sicilian.
yeah so I mean the draft is obviously like real fun for us as fans but like it's gotta be fucking stressful if you're in the draft.
Yeah. Speaking of that number one pick, though, how about you tell us about Will
Yeah.
Levis?
Yeah, so this I alluded to it with my opening. Um, Will Levis's draft stock has seemed to rise due to a rumor on Reddit.
Because Reddit is the
Yesterday,
most trustworthy of sources.
correct, there always is. Yesterday, the odds for him being taken number one overall was plus 4,000. Then a rumor surfaced on Reddit that reportedly has Levis telling his friends and families that Carolina has outright told him, "We are taking you number one." His odds now sit at plus 400. Obviously, a Reddit rumor is just that, a rumor. However, Vegas upping his odds from plus 4,000 to plus 400 is noteworthy because that's their job.
But at the same time, it's also could be indicative of how much Stroud has dropped in those numbers. The fact
Oh,
that
I'm sure that there's some part of his odds being increased or due to Stroud decreasing in his odds, but that's a big jump. Plus 4,000 to plus 400.
do we know what the current betting odds are for Bryce Young?
I do not.
I'm
I'm
about
sure
to
you can
Google it.
find it relatively quickly. But my man Will Levis has come a long way from the reports of him having a phobia of milk.
According to current betting odds, Bryce Young is predicted to be drafted number one in the 2023 draft with a 95.2% implied probability at a negative 2,000.
Wow.
Bryce Young's about to be a Panther.
It seems that way.
And honestly, that's what I've been saying for a while. Which is, let's rewind the clock a couple weeks ago when I was just like, it's got to be Richardson. He's Cam 2.0. If it's not him, it's got to be Stroud. If it's Bryce Young, I think it's going to be a backward step. Now I'm going to retract my statements. I think it's going to be Bryce Young at this point. And given everything that's been coming out of the past couple weeks, I think Bryce Young has done a lot to improve his draft stock that I wouldn't mind it now. I'm completely okay with it. That being said, I still maintain that if we were still a if we were still a team like 5 years ago, if we were still a Gettleman team, it would be Will Levis.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not
That's a
I'm not saying that Gettleman is racist.
just implying it.
I'm just implying. And it's implying it with a lot of speculation and a grain of salt. So, yeah.
So that's it for NFL news. Obviously, we will keep tabs on the draft in 2 days. Next week we'll report on that. But that's about it for the NFL. Why don't you talk to me about the final regular season week of the XFL?
Yeah, so all the playoff implications that went into everything, we've got it. We've got our playoff set. We'll get around to that, and we'll talk about that as we go. But to start out, Saturday afternoon. I actually watched this game for like 3 quarters. I missed the first quarter, but Orlando at St. Louis. This was hands down the highest scoring game of the season. St. Louis, again, they were fighting for that position in the playoffs. They had to really make a statement on their offense and really widen the gap in order for them to really be considered that number 2 seed. And putting up 53 points is a great way to do that. AJ McCarron actually broke Ben DiNucci's single game passing record, 420 yards, 6 touchdowns. That's
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
those are some numbers. And then, of course, to have a good passing game, you got to have a good receiving game. We had star-making performances out of both Hakeem Butler and Darius Shepard. Darius Shepard, I swear, he was all over the field. He was amazing. I thought this one was interesting. Brian Hill, who we've been very critical of this year, sat out of the game for, quote, and I quote, personal reasons. I don't know what personal reasons those are. If you ask me, take this with a grain of salt. This is just me being snarky. I think those personal reasons were the coaches sat him so that way he couldn't fuck it up for everybody else. Mateo Durant, Kareem Walker, they carried the share of the running. Both put up in the 36 and 33 yards respectively. Nothing to write home about. But again, this was a mostly passing game. So, in order to win the tiebreakers, the St. Louis's defense had to limit as many points as possible out of the Guardians. By allowing 28 points from the Orlando offense, they severely harmed their chances at beating out Seattle for the 2 seed. And I said, watch it come back to bite them in the ass. And Foreshadowing. We get to the second game. The second game was Saturday. DC and San Antonio turned out to be a lot closer and a lot more exciting of a game than I expected. At one point, the Brahmas were actually leading halfway through the fourth quarter. It was 28-22. It looked really good. They had some really good chances to actually pull this off. And it's just, again, their way to the playoffs was they needed to win against DC, and they needed Arlington to lose in order for them to take the 2 seed at 4-6. That still blows my mind.
Yep, that's the biggest problem with the XFL.
And we'll talk about that. I've consistently said that DC is the most complete team in the league, and
I agree.
We've talked about their offense being great. We've talked about their defense being great. This was a special teams game. This was Puka Williams making a statement as a punt returner and kick returner, and if he's consistently getting you guys into good field position to start your drives, it's a good look. That's gonna definitely help in the postseason for sure. He averaged over 30 yards on 6 attempts. The longest was a 79-yard steamroll that put them right into the red zone. It was beautiful. On the other side of the ball, you had Jack Cohn putting up another 300-yard game. He let the rushing game take over in the red zone. There was a lot of 1-2 yard touchdowns. 2 touchdowns for Jacquez Patrick, who again has been the second best runner in the league behind Abram Smith. Jonathan Hillman had 1 as well. They still have the second best run game, and they do still have a great defense. But we got to talk about our boy John Parker Romo, who has been the star kicker of the year in this league, has been nailing them all, and there is nothing more poetic than this game ending on him missing his second kick of the year. That ended the game. Whereas they went for the field goal as time was expiring. That when they were down 29-28, if they would have made it, that would have been enough to do the trick. And he missed. And just the look of disappointment on his face was heartbreaking. And he made 2 kicks before that as well. It's just the fact that their season ends on the most reliable kicker in the league missing a kick, that's pretty poetic.
Yeah.
And then one thing I also wanted to note is that the last 4 games for DC have been decided by 2 points or less. And the one 2-point victory was an overtime victory. You can't keep playing these close games. It's when you look back at the earlier part of the season and you were putting up like 10, 15-point victories, you compare that to the last couple weeks, it's almost as if they're starting to get a little tired out. Not looking good. That could spell disaster for them in the playoffs.
I agree, but I will say it says something about your team finding a way to win these close games.
Also true.
But if you want a championship, you don't want to play 4 straight weeks, 2 points or less.
Exactly. The last 4 games total, and that's including that loss to Orlando, was decided by 2 or less points.
Yep.
3 of those games were decided by 1 point. You can't do that. You can't do that. No. With that being said, that kicked San Antonio out of the playoff run. So that meant that our third game of the week, honestly, was kind of boring in return because it was just Houston versus Arlington.
Which we're seeing in a week.
Yeah, the only difference is it'll be Houston at home.
Right.
And this was all Houston. They are now 6-0 against their division. So they clearly they deserve to be in the playoffs because they were the lead of the South. That does it. This was mostly a ground game, and again, it was very rounded out. Cole McDonald put up 10 of 11. He only made 11 pass attempts, but he went 10 for 11. That's impressive. Only 120 yards. And he posted another 66 on the ground. Like I said, this was mostly a run game. Jeremy Cox also put up 120 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Those are NFL quality numbers for sure. And then there was also a beautiful pick 6 for 45 yards from Devontae Beckett for Houston. They were just all over Arlington. I think at most, Luis Perez had a good pass or two, but this was all Houston. This still means that the Renegades are going to the playoffs at 4-6.
Yeah.
And this is where we get into that discussion again of how making the playoffs go by divisional rankings as opposed to just overall record when you're only in an 8-team league. It's kind of stupid.
Yep.
Because that forced the hand of St. Louis versus Seattle, which now we get into our last game of the week. And again, Seattle had to win this with letting Vegas score as little points as possible in order to keep the rankings. I think that was technically the 5th tiebreaker, was what it came down to for deciding that last playoff spot. My first note says it all. This is DiNucci's league. We're just living in it. 339 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air, 41 yards and a touchdown on the ground. I
told you, he's winning MVP.
Honestly, he has to at this point. Give him the league MVP. He has been all over. The only argument I would make against Ben DiNucci is that he still leads the league in picks. He had 2 more on the day. I think it was somewhere along the lines of 17 picks on the year. That's
not good.
That's not good.
Especially in a 10-game season.
Yeah, that's not a good look. When you're averaging more, almost 2 picks a game, not good.
It's not good.
This will be critical.
And they're playing DC next week, and DC has
ball hawks.
Pretty nasty. Yeah.
Ball hawks on that defense.
Yeah.
Josh Gordon put up he put up NFL style numbers. He had 115 yards.
Did you almost say star-making performance?
Yeah, he already was a star. It was reestablishing himself. So, and here's my thing. Josh Gordon has really taken a quiet backseat for the most of this season. He's been letting the other receivers shine. Of course, Jacour Pearson, has been leading the league, I believe, in rushing yards for the longest. I got to double check and see if that's got passed up. But this looked like NFL style Gordon. Jacob Pearson had a good game as well. I think he had somewhere in the 60 yards. I didn't write it down. Jawan Green put up 88 yards and a touchdown himself. Chris Blair only had one, like on the other side of the ball, you had Chris Blair that caught 170-yard touch. Yeah, well, I think it was a touch. I take that back. It wasn't a touchdown. He got stopped like inside the 5. But again, when you put up, Chris Blair is putting up wild numbers on these receptions for DC. So that's going to be a shootout next week. Or this week, technically.
Oh, absolutely.
It's going to be a shootout for sure. This is the baffling stat of the week.
Yes, it is.
Jalen McClendon went 6 for 21. He only made 6 passes in 21 attempts. But he passed for 201 yards. It's an average of over 35 yards of pass.
33 and a half.
33 and a half. That's insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just insane. Like, just looking at those numbers again, like you're passing 2 of 7. What is it? 28% passing completion if that's the case for 30 plus yards every shot, every pass. That's insane. Rushing was non-existent for the Vipers. So St. Louis, again, since they allowed so many points against Orlando, all Seattle had to do to secure their spot was to have a strong defense, and they pitched a shutout for the first half, held the Vipers to only 9 points. It's a shame that the Battlehawks get eliminated from playoff contention because of this, but at the same time, now we're looking at a DC-Seattle matchup this weekend that
that's mouth-watering.
That was literally the word I was looking for, and I was trying to find a different word for it. But no, mouth-watering is exactly I've been looking into tickets for the game for sure. I'm debating it. I just got to figure it out amongst all the rest of my bills. That being said, that's the end of the regular season for the XFL. We'll be able to talk about playoffs next week. You want to talk to us about the USFL?
I will, but real quick, I just want to throw a shout out to the XFL.
Yes.
Honestly, when we started this podcast, we weren't even sure if we were going to cover it. We weren't sure how in depth we were going to go. But to be completely honest with you, I have looked forward to our XFL segment for these past 10 weeks.
And you said the same thing last week as well. So
I know, but they deserve it.
They deserve it. So,
the USFL does not.
It was kind of a chore.
I don't know how long we are going to follow you. I mean, we're gonna keep our integrity. We'll ride the season out.
Yeah.
But this week there was only one game worth talking about, and I'm just gonna save them for the end. So first we'll start with the Birmingham Stallions versus the Memphis Showboats. This game was an absolute blowout.
I just saw that final score. My God.
Yes. The Stallions are showing us exactly why they are the defending USFL champs. They have won their first 2 games by a combined score of 69-12.
That's insane.
Their quarterback, who has the best name in all of football, Magoo went 21 of 28 for 301 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Quick, who's got the better name, Magoo or Danucci?
Magucci. Danu. Magucci.
I don't ship it.
Stallions running back Zaquandre White had 8 attempts for 72 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Those are good numbers.
Those are great numbers. The Showboats somehow got a safety in the third quarter, and that is all the points that they would get. They got their defensive end came off the line. Somehow somebody messed up a blocking assignment. He came untouched and sacked Magoo in the end zone. But by the time they got the safety, the score was already 35-2.
That's one of those moments where you can just shrug it off and be like, "All right, whoop-de-doo, you got 2
points." Whatever. Yeah, the final of that game was Stallions 42, Memphis 2.
That is
good.
Outrageous.
Yeah. The New Jersey Generals versus the Pittsburgh Maulers. New Jersey's defense was lights out. Ready for these defensive stats? Because we love a good defensive stat around here.
Mm-hmm.
2 fumble recoveries, 1 interception, 5 sacks, 3 points allowed, and 166 total yards allowed.
Jesus.
You put up numbers like those, you're going to win some games in any league.
Exactly. It's like they say, offense wins games, defense wins championships.
That's right. New Jersey running back Darius Victor, great name, had 72 yards and a touchdown. He's trying to win back-to-back rushing titles for the USFL. And backup quarterback Dakota Prukop had the game's only passing touchdown. Now, New Jersey won 20-3.
Now, is he really the backup quarterback, or is that because I remember last week I was talking about the fact that they were playing that 2-quarterback split? So it could just be that they were split in time.
He is the backup quarterback by definition, as in he did not get the start.
Okay, that makes sense.
But yes, they did do their 2-quarterback system again. Mm-hmm. But by definition, he didn't start. That makes him the backup.
Yeah.
Right. Michigan Panthers versus the Philadelphia Stars. Michigan had 2 wins all of last season. They've already matched that 2 weeks into this season and are leading their division. Michigan running back Reggie Corbin was the player of the game with 131 yards, 2 touchdowns on only 11 attempts.
Damn.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good day at the office.
Yeah, it is.
Both quarterbacks had 2 interceptions, but the difference was that Panthers quarterback Josh Lowe had a touchdown, where Stars quarterback QB Case Cookus did not.
I still love his name, though, Cookus. Let Cookus cook.
Good one, too.
But
the Panthers won that game 24-10. And that brings us to the Houston Gamblers.
Yeah, the most exciting team in the USFL so far.
The Houston Gamblers versus the New Orleans Breakers. I went in depth with this one because this game was awesome. So starting off with the first possession, the Houston kicker Nick Vogel shanked a field goal on their opening drive. This continues our mediocre kicking stories from our spring league football coverage. The Breakers score on their first possession with a beautiful run by Wes Hills. He had quite a few nice runs on the first possession, along with some excellent blocking from his O-line. His first run of the game, he looked like a bowling ball running, just covered the ball with 2 hands right up the middle for 10 yards, taking out defenders left and right. And credit to his O-line, they put up a hard-fought game for Wes Hills. The Gamblers responded with a beautiful kick return that saw them start their next drive on the right side of the 50, and they would go on to cap that off with a 44-yard field goal from Vogel. His 44-yard field goal murdered that ball, split the uprights, to quote our friend Brandon Perna, right down the gooch.
Hey, honestly, after you shank your first kick, you got to make up for it with the second one.
Got to have a short memory in football. McLeod Bethel Thompson just carved up Houston's secondary. And we said the same thing last week. Obviously, he comes from the CFL. Grey Cup winner. Grey Cup MVP, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. A field goal by the Breakers makes the score 10-3 with under a minute in the second.
Actually,
however,
let's take a moment to acknowledge that as well. In a league, in both of the spring leagues so far, the quarterbacks have been really young. Bethel Thompson is like 34, 35. He's the one veteran quarterback on any of these teams.
Yep. And it shows.
Mm-hmm.
It shows. So they hit a field. The Breakers hit a field goal to make the score 10-3 with under a minute in the second quarter. However, Houston quarterback Benji Bahar drops a beautiful dime to Justin Hill for a 25-yard touchdown to tie it up at 10 going into half. Even the commentators, they said that ball wouldn't have been more perfect if Bahar would have walked it down and handed it to him himself.
Damn.
That pass was absolutely beautiful. I mean, he had a defender right on his shoulder, and he put the ball right here. I mean, it was beautiful. Bahar hit wide receiver Anthony Ratliff-Williams for a 40-yard catch and run to take the lead in the third quarter. Sorry. Ethel Thompson found wide receiver Sage Surratt in the back corner of the end zone to tie it back up. This game has been beautifully just back and forth. And then Bahar throws an interception. This gets repetitive later on in the game. Ethel Thompson hits Johnny Dixon for a touchdown. Points off turnovers is how you win games.
Yep.
Bahar finds wide receiver Justin Hall, who hurdles a defender, channeling 2016 Ezekiel Elliott, and he goes down at the 1 yard line. DJ Pleasure ran it in, ties the game back up with 24. Ties the game back up at 24 with 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Wes Hills gets his second touchdown on the ground after a nice drive from the offense. Just very meticulous. It was a nicely put together drive by them. Bahar again finds Justin Hill, who refuses to go down, hits a spin cycle to score a touchdown. The Gamblers then held the Breakers, forced a punt, but that led to another Bahar interception. Ethel Thomas has a beautiful touch pass that went probably 40, 50 yards to get them down to the 14-yard line. And then Wes Hills gets his third rushing touchdown of the game with 42 seconds left. At this point, Bahar then throws his third pick, all of which came in the second half, and that was what ended the game for Houston.
Like we were mentioning with Danucci, you can't afford all them picks.
Correct. Both quarterbacks threw for over 250 yards, but Bahar and his 3 interceptions is what led them to the loss. This was Wes Hill's game, 110 yards, 3 touchdowns on 18 attempts. New Orleans would move on to 2-0 with a 38-31 victory.
I think New Orleans, especially just because of the fact that they have Bethel Thompson under center, they might be the team to beat this year.
Them or Birmingham.
Yeah. Well, Birmingham, they need stiff competition at this point.
Correct.
What week do we have Birmingham versus New Orleans?
Tell me.
Let's take a look.
Because that's going to be a good game.
Yep.
Hopefully.
Let's see. Schedule. Oh, next week.
Love that. Love that.
To add to our already insanely packed week.
Yeah, next week, brutal.
Yep.
Next week's brutal.
Well, excuse me.
You all right there, bud?
Yeah, I got a little bit of a cough today. So.
That's football.
Yeah, let's talk wrestling. And first things first, we have to talk about it. Big Gold 2.0. My God. Trips comes out last night, throws a bunch of shade at Roman about how, oh yeah, I probably would have done the same thing, but he's negotiated a contract where he only has to be part-time, and he's taken both titles with him. Good on him for this 1,000-day reign, for him having the 1,000-day reign. But the fans deserve more. The fans deserve a new title belt. He reveals this title, and oh my God, it's beautiful.
It is. It is. I like it.
I texted you a picture of it as soon as it came, while it was on TV. And I was
which you never texted me back, dick.
I actually had it typed out, and I never hit send. I believe what it's going to be is that this is where there's just going to be a new lineage of Big Gold.
Okay.
What it's going to come down to, I think they're just going to end up unifying WWE and the Universal titles. I think it's still going to be called the WWE Universal title, or Universal Championship, in order to make room for the World Heavyweight Championship. Because they are calling this the World Heavyweight Championship. So, I think it's going to be new lineage. So essentially what's going to happen is next week in the draft, or technically this week in the draft, we're going to have to talk WWE draft as well this next week. Whatever brand drafts Roman will get the Universal WWE title. Whichever brand doesn't get Roman will crown this new World Heavyweight Champion at Night of Champions in Jeddah on May 27th. Now, I'm not going to lie. When this got revealed and when it was being rumored that it was happening, I was really excited. And then I started hearing everybody else online, all the other big outlets, saying it's not it. And I have to agree with some of their arguments. So this is essentially becoming the consolation. Congratulations for not beating Roman. title. I don't know how I feel about that. Because essentially, this is basically saying, well, nobody can beat Roman, so we're just going to make a second title. And
Yeah, a third title essentially.
yeah, third
Because
title. That was the other thing.
Roman
Too,
carries
like,
2 belts.
yeah, so it's just, it's challenging because they're right, but at the same time, they kind of booked themselves in this corner anyways. It's their fault. This could have all been fixed by not having that split second. Sean Ross said it best last night, and it's essentially this is still Triple H cleaning up Vince's mess.
Yeah.
And I get that.
Yeah.
I think people are being too hard on this championship already, though.
So it's not the championship's fault, obviously. However, I am of the opinion that this now diminishes whoever beats Roman.
That's one of the other arguments that's going around right now is that there's some diluting of everything.
This does diminish because we could have had that beautiful visual of Cody holding 2 belts or whoever. It doesn't have to be Cody. We could have had the visual of whoever holding 2 belts. Like, let's just use Cody. Cody holding the 2 belts. I don't want the Universal. This is what I'm here for. And then there's your split. The one title goes back to the, but now it's going to be just the 1 belt, I'm assuming. And it takes away a little bit on whoever is able to dethrone Roman after Roman. Everybody loves Raymond. It takes away a little bit whoever dethrones Roman Reigns and his inevitable 1,000-day reign.
It also takes away from whoever does win this championship because again, it's a consolation prize for not being able to beat Roman. And at the same time,
there's a simple fix to that. You have somebody win that title who hasn't challenged Roman. I won this title because Roman didn't face me.
So that's the thing, though, is that who is at the top of the card that could even compete that is feasibly possible to win that title? Look at some of the names that are being thrown around right now. Seth. So that was the thing. Seth comes out towards the end of the night to talk about how, and he brings up is like everyone has beaten Roman except for me. So I think I have a strong claim to this title.
Everyone's lost to Roman.
Yeah, everyone's lost to Roman except for me. And it honestly, that did more than anything to help that belt off the back. Let's be real, though, that whole segment was really just built to promote the out-of-nowhere announcement that we're getting Seth Rollins versus Omos at Backlash next week. It literally came out of nowhere on social media on Friday. It was just like, surprise. Here's the fight graphic for it. And I thought it was funny because Rollins responds with Jim Carrey going, "Alrighty then." I get the whole argument behind it. However, I still want my prediction to run true, and we get Roman versus Seth at 40. I still want it. It's still possible. All they have to do is draft Seth to the same brand as Roman, which, again. And this is the other thing about that, too, is that there's already the argument of Cody winning that belt, obviously. That's still like...
That will make it feel like a consolation prize.
That will make it feel like a consolation prize, 100%, but it's still the most likely option because the likelihood is that Roman and Cody get drafted to different brands, them being the quote-unquote 2 biggest draws in the company.
Yeah.
So... if you have Cody and Seth on the same brand to compete for that second title, which we've already seen, yes, there's history there, but that's already a matchup that's been worn out.
Yep.
Plus the fact that Seth has had this natural babyface turn. Like, the crowd is just naturally behind him. They love singing along. That's the 2 people that they love singing along to their songs.
Yep.
And I think there's still more of a story to be told about Seth being the only person to not lose to Roman. I think there's still a lot of weight to be told, and that's why I still think it could be a big move for Seth to still challenge for the Universal WWE title.
Yep.
I think him coming out and still giving some credence to the new title still helps its value.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So I have to ask. Say there's a tournament to crown a new champion. Who are some names that you want to see in that championship tournament?
Seth, Drew, Sheamus, Finn, maybe Priest.
I don't know about Priest.
Throw Ray in for legendary, Rey Mysterio in for some legendary weight to it.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, Cody.
Cody.
Cody's being in the mix. And again, this is all also a matter of they have to be drafted to the same brand first.
Montez.
Every single name that you just named, with the exception of Seth, Roman has beaten.
Yeah.
And that's, again, why it becomes the issue of this is the consolation prize. Roman has beaten every single one of those names.
Which is why if I was a betting man, I would put my money on Seth to win it.
I also agree. But again, there's still a better story to be told by Seth going and challenging Roman again and getting inside of his head.
I agree. I absolutely agree. Well, the good news is we have over a month until we're going to get a new champion. So we'll see how I am also the type of person who I always say, like, let the story play out. Let's not jump to conclusions.
Exactly.
So
I feel like, and that's the other thing, when I say that, like, everyone online is, like, down on this, I think I still have hope for this. I still have a lot of hope for this. I feel like with Trips' booking, it has an opportunity. That being said,
Absolutely.
We did also have reports that Vince was making changes to the rundown remotely last night, which,
yeah,
I don't know.
We just need Endeavor to step in and draw a line.
Yeah, we really need it. Like, it's messing with things too much. You had women's wrestling getting taken out. Why does Vince hate women's wrestling? He keeps taking out, of all the things that he keeps writing out, it's all the women's segments.
Why is Vince in trouble right now? Because of women. That's why he's doing this.
No, because even before that, he was always eliminating women's matches, giving them only 3 minutes for an entire show. Like,
give Divas a chance.
Give Divas a chance. And again, Trips has been very high on women's wrestling since coming into power. He was very high on it in NXT. He was very much about building it up. You got to think he's got 3 daughters that are potentially looking to break into this. I think his oldest is already like training. So
yeah. So speaking of divas, where was CM Punk last night?
Great transition. I love that. CM Punk, not last night, during the day. I guess it was like before the show and whatnot. He was backstage at Raw last night. So we've been reporting already that we've been talking about how there's already been reports. Those were corroborated by Meltzer last week. That Punk is going to be returning to AEW when they come to Chicago for the debut of AEW Collision in June. And not only that, but that's going to cause a brand split because they need to keep people separate from one another. I think they're going to end up running with this Punk versus Jericho feud that they're talking about. I think that would be great. But again, the fact that you're having to necessitate a brand split because of one person, it's
a bit much.
It's a bit much.
Yep.
Although, and granted, we've been saying that AEW needs a brand split just because their rosters are too deep. And I just don't know how I feel about starting another show. Like, think about it now. You have 6 nights of the week that AEW is running shows. 6 nights out of the week. The only night is Sunday. Because you've got Dark Elevation on Monday, Dark on Tuesday, Dynamite on Wednesday, Ring of Honor on Thursday, Rampage Friday, and now Collision on Saturday. When we talk about overcrowding and what is it? When there's just too much to watch, it's impossible to keep up.
It is. And Yeah, it's too much. I mean,
But let's get
and
back.
not. I mean,
Yeah, let's get back to the point though. Punk was backstage at Raw. This came as a surprise to a lot of people. Um, Most notably, him and Miz had a talk to clear the air about some tweets that were sent back and forth in the past couple years. They cleared the air. They buried the hatchet. Good on them. He was also seen speaking to people like Corbin, Lashley, Tamina for some reason, who hasn't been on TV in a while, but apparently there was a whole big uproar, and she was like calming the situation in the garage or whatnot. It was a thing, but whatever. It was also reports that he had met with Triple H very shortly. Uh, they were shaking hands. Everything looked very amicable. He had asked Triple H to stick if he was allowed to stick around for a little bit. Um, Trips was like, "Hey, I'm gonna have to ask about it." Head of security Jim Kelly had asked him to leave at the request of management. Word going around is that was a Vince call, which that doesn't surprise me in the least.
sounds like a Vince call.
It sounds like a Vince call to be petty. Whereas again, like Punk's on this he's kind of on this tour of what's the word I'm looking for here? He's trying to make good with people.
Yep.
On his with him trying to get back into the public and like get back on TV. Like he's been trying to make good with a lot of people. He's talking about how he still has the bug. It's not a surprise that his first time back in WWE backstage in 9 years is him trying to make amends.
Correct.
It's honestly a good thing. He did leave.
However,
He did leave without
if you
incident.
know how to if you know how to conduct yourself, you don't need to make amends.
That's for one. For two, the big argument right now is was this a publicity stunt?
I wouldn't put it past Punk.
I wouldn't put it past him either because there's a lot of people that are saying like, yeah, you can make your amends, but you didn't have to do that this way.
Right.
Like there are other ways that you could have done it. It's just not a good look if you're backstage like that. And so
Why do you think I used the segue of speaking of divas? Because that's what he is.
yeah, AEW hasn't reached out to him. There's no concern of him jumping ship. He still has plenty of time on his AEW contract. I don't think that's going to be an issue. I think it's just, again, I think it was just him making amends, making good with people.
I'd like to think it's just Punk getting older, getting wiser, and trying to clear up some of the wreckage from his past.
There is also, like, there was discussion that he was actually invited by friends to come out. Like, this wasn't just him popping up and saying, hey, what's up? This was legitimately like, hey, no, he was invited by people. He was there to make his amends. Like, yes, it's making good with people, but still.
Yeah. Whatever, man. I'm over Punk.
We've already said our piece about him multiple times over. Again.
So, but also though, to be honest, dude, if I'm TK and AEW, I'm making a phone call.
Oh, of course.
Like,
I wouldn't be surprised if that happens during. I wouldn't be surprised if news of that breaks during the week. Again, this is all still fresh. This all just happened last night. So
right, like if I'm them, I'm like, yo, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like what? And I would ask that genuinely, like, hey, what's going on? Why are you doing this? Like, give me your thought process behind all of this.
Exactly. And that's why people are saying that it was a little bit of a publicity stunt, trying to ramp up people talking about him before he comes back. I can see that being a thing. Punk is a smart enough man to know what he's doing, and I'm pretty sure that there is some level of that going on. Speaking of returns to WWE,
hey,
look at that segue.
Not really.
So this is speculation there, that there could be a return, but the facts of it are Mercedes Mone lost the IWGP Women's Championship at Stardom's All-Star Grand Queendom this weekend.
He did not hold that very long.
At the same time, that belt is still relatively new, and there's a lot less lineage. I think she held it longer than Kyrie did. So, and she did have quite a few defenses.
Yes.
It is said that she's returning to free agency soon. There was talks that she had, so she has no more shows left on her. She has no more dates left with Stardom on her contract. She has extended her contract with New Japan long enough for her to go to Resurgence next month when it's going to be in Long Beach, which is one of their U.S. shows. After that, there's discussion that she'll be a free agent. Now, both sides have said, yes, we're interested in keeping you around. However, because of how much of a draw and how much attention she brought to both the New Japan and Stardom, it's very possible that her asking price is going to go way up. And the question is Bushiroad willing to pay that money? So, this is why I say there's speculation. She very well could be going back to the WWE after this. And this is my speculation. This is not factual or anything. I think this is opening the road for her to come back. I think this was just, she went out, had her excursion in Japan. I liken it to what Jericho did when he first left. That's the way I look at it. Jericho, he had a few dates with New Japan. He won the U.S. Championship. He defended it. He had some great dream matches. Let's be real. The match she had this weekend with Mayu Iwatani was a dream match.
The Painmaker.
Yeah, the Painmaker. So I think that this is opening up a U.S. return. I think it's more like, I still think there is the possibility of her going to AEW. I think that's still in the cards. However, I would much prefer seeing her return to the E. I think that with the changes that have been made since Trips has taken over in the year that she's been gone, I think that, especially like her having such good rapport with everybody, I think there's a good possibility that she comes back.
If anybody can get her back in the E, it's Triple H.
Absolutely. I mean, I know that like there's been talks that like Trips has talked to her over this time period, and he's been really again, he's been very reasonable with her over everything. And a lot of people were saying it's just like, again, if she just wants, like, even just looking at the way that she did everything in the past year, just the fact that she was like, I need to leave and find myself. That happened before, like, when she went away the first time, before she came back and won the tag titles with Naomi. Like, she went back, she was out there, and that was when she was filming for The Mandalorian. And she's just like, I need to find out who I am again. It's no different than what Jericho did. It's no different than what Cody did when he originally made his list. Like, it's not unheard of, and it's completely reasonable.
Yep.
Now,
having said that, I do think she's a bit dramatic.
I think she has a right to be dramatic.
There have been multiple reports of her not being easy to work with backstage.
Also true. Also very true.
I think she has a very big ego.
Yeah.
In this industry, you have to.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
In this industry, you have to. I get that. But to quote my grandfather, I think she might be getting a little big for her britches.
That's fair. I can agree with that. Now, the big thing, of course, that would be preventing her from coming back is the ongoing WWE hiring freeze.
Oh, we are killing these fucking segues right now.
Right? Let's go. So, higher-ups in WWE have reiterated to Fightful Select that there has effectively been a hiring freeze since the beginning of the year. It hasn't been official, but it's kind of been there. Somebody pointed out that, like, one of the higher-ups had pointed out that between August and December of last year, there were 20 main roster signings as compared to the 0 since the beginning of the year. And those were names such as, that some of those that hadn't even appeared on TV yet. You've got Eric Young, you've got Chelsea Green, you've got whoever's under the Uncle Howdy mask. Like, there's a lot of names that are being involved that were like, they were hired in late 2022, but nothing in 23. Now, a lot of people are still assuming that it's because of, it's not so much about not bringing in talent as it is they want to figure things out with the sale of the company first, which I can understand that. Now, that being said, they've still been window shopping, and they've still been talking to other to free agents and other people. Like, they've been drawing like attention. They notably before Jay White signed with AEW, he had been talking about how he was in talks with WWE, and then they just went cold on him.
Yep.
That apparently has been happening a lot. Multiple free agents have said that. Among the names that have been talked about, among the names that were mentioned, Nick Aldis was told that WWE has maintained interest in him, and I've long said that Nick Aldis is long overdue his time in the E. But
Yep.
it also makes sense that he signed with Impact because Mickey.
Yep.
EJ Nduka, former NXT star, of course, he was directly contacted by James Kimball, which is one of the big agents backstage.
Yep.
And of course, Nduka, ever since he hit the Indies, has really made a name for himself. He went to MLW and really made a showing out there. He became a star. I think him returning would be really good. We mentioned Jay White already. Hikuleo and Tamatonga were included in that list. So that's another big one as well, because you get the other side of the Samoan, the Tonga dynasty, essentially is what
Yep.
it is.
Yep.
I would kill for the Samoans versus the Tongans. Would kill
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah.
And an interesting one, they've talked to Naomi about a return, which is also interesting because we have it in our other notes. New Japan reportedly turned down an offer to bring her in. She was also backstage this weekend at a GCW show. So she's looking to
Okay.
come back. It's just a matter of where she's coming back.
Definitely seems like she has the bug.
Oh, absolutely. And she's been gone for a year, and she took time away. Like, she's been doing red carpet type stuff, fashion shows with Sasha and whatnot. She's been keeping
Yep.
busy, but there were also reports that she's been seen training with Samurai del Sol, the former Kalisto, who is, of
Uh-huh.
course, friends of all of them,
Yep.
a
Good
business
lucha.
partner of Sasha.
Good lucha things.
Good lucha things. So, yeah, that's also in the works.
Yep. Yep. Um.
So let's get into this other wrestling news. To follow up on our last minute notes from last week, we mentioned how Masaya and Mansoir were on Twitch talking about how they were allowed to be like making all this, like being real tongue in cheek about them being allowed to be back on Twitch, what they can and can't say. More news has come out about that. So Fightful Selective revealed that WWE and Twitch have actually entered a new agreement that sees the return of stars to Twitch with quote unquote almost no restrictions. Among those, one of the caveats that was listed was that talent are not allowed to stream with people from other companies without being cleared first. So obviously, like Zelina can't have have Malachi Black on without permission and stuff like that. There's
Right.
still hope for a Departy reunion, which they've been doing YouTube videos together already, so that's a thing.
Mhm.
Ironically enough, I haven't been seeing Chugs stream that much lately. He's
No.
just been too busy, I guess. But here, this is what I find interesting. So, of course, me being a Twitch streamer myself, I understand how there's all the arguments about what dividends are paid out to who. Twitch right now, one of the biggest things they're taking fire under is that they're not really making things very fruitful for the streamers themselves. It's a 55-45 split on the pay. It's a lot of streamers don't like it. This deal that they worked out is a 3-way split. Twitch and talent receive the majority of the revenue. They actually negotiated for the talent to get better payouts than other streamers. In addition to that, WWE's share of the cut is said to be very low in the single digits, which it's basically them saying, like, yeah, we're doing it because they're contracted, like we're gonna have the final say on it, but we're not trying to take that much money out of the pockets. We want about as little as possible.
Good.
More than anything, we want to make sure that our talent are getting paid for this. I think
Good.
this is big because this is the first step in Twitch actually really offering people better money in return with all the
Yeah.
competition that's been going on with Kick and everything. Like, I keep an eye on this stuff because I'm a streamer myself. I recognize that. So, notably, a lot of, again, we've already seen Masaya Mansoir. I mentioned Zelina. I've seen her back on streaming. I've seen Woods back on Austin Creed back on his channel. It feels good to see all of them back.
Good. They deserve it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of Woods, his buddy Big E
Yeah.
had his 1-year scans on his neck.
Mm-hmm.
And he shared a positive update. Big E was quoted saying, "It's just a complicated fracture. I broke my C1 and C2 in 2 places. A Jefferson fracture is what it's called. It just takes a little more time to heal. We just did the 1-year scans after WrestleMania. It was a little later because of WrestleMania. We need to sit down with the doctors at some point and figure out what the next step is. From my perspective, I feel great. I have no function issues, no pain issues. I've been in the gym since 2 weeks after I broke my neck. I'm feeling great. Obviously, your neck has to be in a certain condition to deal with the rigors of being in the ring on a nightly basis." End quote.
That's it's a good sign. It's a really good sign. Also, Worked Wrestling, WRKD. They have been they were talking about one of the long-term plans that's being looked at for his return is a New Day versus Imperium feud, with the New Day as the heels in the situation, and the centerpiece would be Big E versus Gunther. Big meaty men slapping meat.
That would be great.
Just yes, I want to see that for sure. That's just a great trios match in itself.
Absolutely.
Speaking of the injuries, though, at the same time, we also had reports that Robert Roode's injuries have yet to heal, and he'll continue to be out for a little while longer. It's already been about a year, but a lot of that was having to do with the fact that he didn't get his fusion surgery until late last year. So he went a couple months before the surgery, and now he's still recovering from surgery now. So he's going to be out a little bit longer. You got to think he's a lot older. He's in his 40s. He's been around the block a time or two. So
yeah,
it makes sense that it's going to take him a little bit longer to heal. I mean, we already see what's happening to Randy right now with him taking time to heal. It makes sense, but it's just unfortunate.
I lost it. Take the next one.
So Fightful Select have also reported that AEW and Hangman Page are looking to renew his contract or negotiating a contract extension. Obvious. I think Adam Page is. I mean, he's one of the founding members. He was part of that founding announcement.
Yep.
He competed like he's one of their earliest homegrown stars. It makes sense. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of the as much as we wanted the 4 Pillars 4-way in AEW, it instead looks like we're getting the Pillars tournament.
Yeah. So, Dynamite last week they've been teasing this whole the 4 Pillars all coming at each other's throats. MJF basically comes out, and of course, this week the show started with Darby, Sammy, and Jack Perry all sitting here throwing lines at each other, throwing some bombs, if we're being honest. MJF comes out and he's like, "I know everybody wanted to see a 4 Pillars match. We ain't doing that. I'm not putting my title up in a 4-way." Announces the tournament. He basically has all 3 names put in a hat. Draws one to get the first round bye. Darby gets it. We get Jack Perry versus Sammy Guevara in the main event of Dynamite last week. A great match. First time match. Ends with shitty. I think it's shitty booking. MJF coming out and attacking Perry while he's on the outside of the ring, forcing him to miss the count out. Him basically helping Sammy, and then him and Sammy are apparently colluding on this whole thing. They've been teasing this whole like Darby being like the one trying to be built up out of this because of his relationship with Sting and whatnot. So we're getting Darby versus Sammy this week again. I'm interested to see how it plays out. I wouldn't be surprised if we still see this turn into a 4-way match.
Yeah.
At some point down the road.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, there's money in that. Come on.
Mm-hmm. So, a report by Fight Fans says that Bray Wyatt's return is still a little while out, and Alexa Bliss is being held off of TV until she can continue the storyline that began at Royal Rumble. What storyline?
if you remember at the end of the match with her and Bianca, they did the whole like after she lost, they
That's
did that
right.
whole like
That's right.
spooky. You're still like her past being held back against her and whatnot. That
Hmm.
was the thing.
Yep. Tell us about some of these names being thrown around for debuts in the draft.
Yeah, so we have the draft that's coming up this week, and there's been a lot of rumors that the draft is going to include a lot of the call-ups. They've openly said that NXT stars are going to be qualified for the draft, that their names will be in the pools. And so some of the names that have been thrown around, Cameron Grimes, obviously. There's discussion of Dragunov going to SmackDown, which I would like to see that. Pretty Deadly, ready for their call up.
I think they are.
Yeah, they're apparently being talked about going to Raw, which again they have nothing left to do in NXT. They already ran they've already ran the gauntlet in NXT UK and mainland NXT. So good for them. I think their characters are perfect. I think they're a great comedy group. I think that Pretty Deadly are the male iconics.
100%.
That just hit me.
100%.
That just hit me. They are the male iconics. Zoe Stark being rumored, and then just this morning, because they were on main event, and apparently they had a lot of good looks last night, Cora Jade and Joe Gacy being thrown around in there. Now, I want to point out Joe Gacy. I don't have this in the notes because this just came out this morning as well. I was when I was walking the dog, I was reading the news about this. Grizzled Young Veterans, of course, they got repackaged as the Dyad, being part of the whole schism thing.
Yeah.
As we mentioned, I think it was last week. Well, it was 3 weeks ago. They requested their release from WWE. Today, they announced that those contracts were, or last night, one of the two, they announced that they were not granted their release. They are planning on sitting out their contracts, which end in mid-October. I think one of them is October 14th, the other one October 15th. Either way, they're basically saying they want to sit out their contracts. I mean, not the first time we've seen this.
Not at all.
And yeah, it sucks. They're going to have to wait 6 months, but what can you do? I mean, if anything, they were the ones that were tweeting about this. So
Yep.
this is, I mean, at this point, this is forcing WWE's hand.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
I'm actually shocked by that because I thought they would be, I mean, as good as GYV was in the UK and when they came across to Orlando, I thought they were great. I didn't think them getting repackaged was the fork acting like a spoon again. They have so much promise to them. Like there's so much that they can do. There's just so much. Yeah, look, they really are being underutilized.
I agree. So yeah, the draft is Friday, right?
Starts on Friday, continues on Monday.
Nice. We talked about Trinity. We talked about Vince hating women. Bad Bunny is no longer hosting Backlash. He's instead going to make his singles debut against Damian Priest in a street fight.
Is it his singles debut?
It is. His only other match was a tag match with Priest.
He's had this is his third match. What was his second match?
Hang on.
I feel like the
Bad
second one
Bunny.
was. So of course, Bad Bunny and Damian Priest versus Miz and Morrison at 37, and then let me see. Apparently, this is saying it's only his second match.
That's what I thought. I thought it was only his second match.
Which is weird because last night they were saying it was his third. Oh, here we go. Here it is.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. The third one being when he won the 24/7 title off of R-Truth.
So if we want to get technical, this is his fourth match then.
How you figure?
Royal Rumble.
Yeah, that's what it was. He was in the Rumble. You're right. So yeah,
So
this is still his first singles match.
match. Well, technically no. If you consider the 24/7 of,
I'm not counting
but
that shit. Fuck that.
yeah, me either.
I think that's why they were saying third last night, though, is because he was in the Rumble. I forgot about him being in the
Yeah.
Rumble. I was actually thinking
Yeah.
I need to go back and rewatch that one, just because. Yeah, everyone was mad that it was a Brock and Ronda win, but and I liked Ronda winning. I didn't like Brock winning. Obviously, nobody
Right.
liked Brock winning, but it's whatever.
No.
Yeah.
So that does it for
So, our new favorite segment that we've come up with, the fun stuff.
fun stuff.
Just fun notes to close out the day. This really is
Yep.
becoming our new favorite segment, legitimately.
So first and foremost, Russell Wilson flipped a golf cart at Arrowhead Golf Course last week.
I love your comment on this.
Yeah. Even during the offseason, he has turnover problems.
Gotcha.
Man.
I'm not gonna lie, I forgot I had that button, and then last night I accidentally hit it, and I was like, "Oh shit, that's still a thing."
He's okay, no injuries. He just flipped a golf cart.
Yeah, it's whatever. You remember all that issue that was going around about Brett Favre being accused of stealing money?
Allegedly.
Ted DiBiase Jr. was formally charged in the misappropriation of millions of federal funding designated for welfare programs, such as food stamps, SNAP, TANF. I think it's safe to say that WWE are not trying to bring him back.
I think he's done with wrestling anyway.
I think he's done with everything, because right now they're saying that he's going to be going away from the jail for probably the rest of his life for this.
Not good.
Not good. And then our final note, remember a couple of weeks ago when I mentioned that the Macho Man album was going to be pressed on vinyl for the first time officially for Record Store Day?
Yes.
I chose not to camp out because money's tight, and I remember 2 years ago when I did it, it was literally, I had to be there at like 10, I was there at 10 o'clock at night, and I was like the 40th person in line, all for the one copy that the record store in the area was going to have. Obviously, I didn't go. I didn't get that record, and I regret it now because the scalpers have already taken over. There are currently about 6 or 7 copies available online through secondhand selling. The lowest price I can find on that already is $130. I don't think I'm getting it for my collection. At least not right now.
Not yet, right.
Like maybe down the road I'll catch that on like when the prices naturally go down. This is obviously, we're coming right off of Record Store Day, which was Saturday. It's still fresh. They only printed 1,000 copies for the entire world, so it makes sense that they're in pretty limited supply. But God damn it, I really wanted that one.
I know.
I don't know. Maybe one day when I'm balling on bucks, I can actually get. I'll just shell out the $150 for it. But like literally, the cheapest I was able to find with shipping was $130. It's outrageous.
Yeah, I'm looking.
Thanks,
right
scalpers.
now and... Yeah, I'm looking right now, and 150, 500.
Yeah, there's some prices up there that are up in the 500s already, and it's just outrageous in itself.
We'll get it one day.
One day. Oh, this one was advertising that they had it at sticker price for $35, and then when you click on it, it immediately goes to this page cannot be found.
Of course.
Everything is saying $35.99 out of stock.
Well, that's going to do it for us this week. We got a pretty quick episode, but next week we've got
next week's gonna
a big
kill
week
us.
to cover.
Yeah, we're going to have both drafts to cover. We're going to have XFL playoffs to cover. We're going to have predictions for Backlash. Whatever news comes out of everything else, that's on top of everything else. We're going to cover USFL Week 3. There's a lot still to cover.
And next week we're going to be doing our. It's got to be Monday.
Yeah, we can do that.
I do my U-Haul drive on Tuesday from Virginia to Florida.
Are you flying up on Tuesday or
flying up Tuesday morning?
Okay. Yeah, so we'll just have to do a late night Monday.
Monday night again.
Yeah, it's gonna have to wait until after Raw because of course we're gonna be able to we're gonna want to cover the draft. So it's gonna be a late night episode.
That's fine.
All right. Well, that
Works for. I'll hop on at 8. We'll watch Raw together, and then we'll go right into the podcast.
sounds good to me. All right. Well, that's gonna
All
do
right.
it for us. For Bobby Boomerang, I'm Dick Burns. Make sure you leave a like, leave a comment, leave a subscribe, hit that like button, all the different things. Find us on Facebook, find us on Twitter. What am I forgetting? Anything?
Nope.
Thumbs up that bitches.
See y'all next week.
Deuce.